Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our ESSA, is the ESSA dashboard used and where does the data come from webinar. We do ask that everyone please remains muted during the presentation. We will offer an opportunity for questions at the end of our presentation. If you have any along the way, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask those questions, and we'll try to get to them as we present.
Crazy.
So welcome. Today's webinar, we are going to be talking about the ESSA Dashboard. The ESSA Dashboard is one of our most used dashboards in the Department of Education. It is publicly utilized as well as internally analyzed. We do use it. It is based off of certified data sets from Maine School Administrative Units, and this session is about to provide you some information about how SAUs can provide accurate and complete data for this report. So the goal today is to get familiar with the data. We did an introduction last week. If you were not able to attend last week's session, it is recorded and available on our Maine Department of Education YouTube channel. And it is on the DOE data playlist. So the ESSA dashboard, or the ESSA requirements set out by federal legislation, require each state and SAU to publish specific data, which is what we put together in this dashboard. So it is our most utilized dashboard. We do have about 44,000 views from when it was published in November until the end of February this year. That is about twice as many as our other dashboards combined. We do have some other resources where we are aggregating data, but this one is our most utilized, and we'll get into that a little bit at the end about those other resources that are available to you. Next slide, please. So we update this data annually. We provide the data per year, so you can go back a few years on this dashboard. And we do provide this data by type as well. So we are going to go through this process today for this dashboard. All of the data sources for the ESSA dashboard are aggregations of data sets that are collected throughout the school year. So if you're looking at a 23-24 school year, for example, that data has been collected based on all of the data sets collected from Maine School Administrative Units that school year. We do have quite a few collections that we do each year based on different requirements. So we have our ESSA demographics, which is our May accountability date collection. That is driving our enrollment data as well as a daily attendance. So we'll get into that a little bit more later on. We also provide the staff data based on NEO staff certification. We use October 1 enrollment only for the per pupil spending. That is, it is not enrollment based on October 1st, but the per pupil spending is based on that aggregation. We also collect behavior, bullying, truancy, and graduation. And then beyond the school and fiscal year certified data sets, there is also assessment data that we are collecting. So once this dashboard has been published, or when we send it out for review to school administrative units, it is certified data. It is already processed. We are using it for this data set, and it is no longer able to be updated by SAUs once it is in the dashboard phase. So it's really important during the phase of the collection of each of these sets of data that SAUs are paying attention to the data that's in there, making sure it's accurate, making sure that all of the data are coming through so that they are then accurately reflected on this ESSA dashboard, as well as in those other locations. Next slide, yeah. So all of the school year reports, we do have multiple different timeframes for the reports that we collect. NEO staff and October 1 enrollment are collected during the October month. Then we have other data sets that we collect. A couple of them are collected throughout the year. For example, we have our quarterly reports. As you'll see, quarter 4 behavior and bullying are listed here, as well as quarter 4 truancy reporting. We collect that data throughout the school year as they are kind of those unique situations where they are happening throughout the year. So we do offer the opportunity for school administrative units in Maine to provide that data as they are happening, or as those events are happening. So those are collected quarterly. We we don't do anything with them on the first through third quarter. They're just an opportunity for school administrative units to go in and validate the data that's been entered currently, and make sure they're up to date up to that quarter. At the quarter, data can be corrected or fixed, or after the quarter, they can even be updated until that end of year in June and July when those final certifications are happening. Once the certification happens and the data are sent through, that's the end all. We are done. Data is good. We validated it. It is all correct. So that's when we would then take the data and put it together into this report as well as other reports. Other reports we do are ESSA demographics in June. That's the collection is usually based on a reporting day in May, and then we have a certification in June. The last report that we collect from a school year is the graduation report, which is due in August. And so we need all of these reports in order to develop the ESSA dashboard, because it is an aggregation of all of the data that we have based on those data sets. So this is why we are only able to update the ESSA dashboard once a year, and why that usually happens in about November, December, or we have in the past had January, but we're looking to get more into the fall. So we only update this once a year. It is based on those aggregated data sets. Once the data have been completed, that they are put into the dashboard, and we send a notice to SAUs so that they can review the ESSA dashboard. That review period is a requirement from the federal administration that we provide the information to school administrative units so that they can review it and know that it is coming out. Your contact information for your school administrative unit is what is listed at the bottom of each module within the ESSA dashboard. And that's why we have to notify you. So it's really your data, and it's that's an opportunity for you to take a look at it, ask any questions so that when it goes public, you can confidently answer those questions. Next slide. Perfect. So the ESSA demographics report is an enrollment report that we collect in May. It's due in June. It is a aggregation of multilingual learner students. It is special education, any students with any of those enrollment identifiers, as well as just general enrollment for that specific day that the accountability date is set for. Some of the data in the ESSA dashboard is only based on the students that were enrolled on that accountability date. So for example, we'll get into those in a moment, which ones those are, but some of them are specific to that particular day. For example, 2023-2024 was May 30th. So it's based on students that were enrolled on that particular day based on what was submitted to the Department of Education. So data is probably going to look a little bit different than what your current data day-to-day is looking like. So if you are looking at the ESSA dashboard, once it's published, that count of enrollment is going to look different because you're looking at it in December, January, and it's based on May. So it's not going to match your current numbers in your school. It's going to match the data that was provided for that particular day in your district. So the dashboard has multiple different modules that are available. These are the data sources that are providing the data that go into each of those modules. So student demographics is based on the data collected in ESSA demographics reporting. Teacher and workforce, certification data, all of that information that we collect on staff from staff is based on the NEO staff certification that's provided in November. Chronic absenteeism is a bit unique. It is based on our certified data set from daily attendance reporting. However, it is only identifying for the ESSA dashboard, it is only identifying those students who were enrolled on the date of the accountability day. So we'll get into this a little bit later, how it looks a little different than the certified data sets for all of your students, but it's based on just that ESSA demographics date, accountability date. Behavior, bullying, and restraint and seclusion are based on the year-round collection. High school graduation is based on the graduation report, CRDC, school safety. Per pupil spending is based on fiscal EPS reporting, which is October 1. Post-secondary enrollment, National School Student Clearinghouse. And then state assessments are from Spring NUIA, Maine 3-year assessment, and MSAA. And then our national assessment is our NAEP data. Next slide, please. Perfect. So this is just a quick look at what the data what the dashboard looks like when you would log into it. You can select statewide data, you can select your district level, or you can select school data. So there are different layers or levels to the data that you could be looking at. And that is important to note that when you are selecting those, you do want to make sure you remember which one you're doing. It will remain at the top of this screen, but just making sure that you're aware of which level of data you're looking at is really important. We'll get into that in our next couple of slides. So once again, this is the enrollment dashboard. This is based on the ESSA demographics report. So it's only going to be those students enrolled on that accountability date. This year it will be May 30th as well. So last year it was May 30th. 2 years ago it was May 27th. So it changes each year. And so it's based on just those specific dates. If you wanted to cross-reference this data, it would be important to go back to NEO to look at the ESSA demographics report and look at those counts to see which ones are included. This data will also look different, just as a final thought. The data on the ESSA dashboard will also look different than other places where we report data out. For example, we have an enrollment dashboard on our data warehouse, which is probably going to look different than your ESSA dashboard because the enrollment data that's on the data warehouse is actually based on October data, whereas the ESSA dashboard is based on that ESSA demographics. So you're going to see different numbers based on which data sets you're looking at. So just be aware of that when you're looking at state level data. You are looking at different point in time collections. And so we do have on some of our dashboards that are in the data warehouse, we have our metadata, which will tell you where those data are sourced from. That's usually the last tab. The ESSA dashboard is currently in development and in conversation of how we can develop metadata for this collection. Next slide. Yep. So school level data and district level data are actually not going to match one-to-one with one another. School level data are based on attending students, which are students that are physically in your school, present for whatever day. So that's on that ESSA day or that ESSA accountability day. Those students that were in the school, attending school, or even if they were absent or supposed to be attending, those were the students that we are counting for that day. So it's not all of your students that your district is responsible for. It's just the students enrolled in the school on that accountability date. The difference is on the district level is that it's all of your responsible students. So responsible students takes into account your students who are attending school and the students who are out of district placements that your SAU maintains fiscal responsibility for. This could be private students attending private school who are receiving federal funding. It could be students who are in special purpose private schools, regional programs, any of those situations. So those students would be considered responsible students, but they're not going to count as attending students. So you would see the difference in the count of the district level and the school level in that instance. So they're not going to match one-to-one. We'll see an example of that in the next slide. So this is a school that operates, or this is actually a district. So this is a district level view of that student enrollment screen, that demographic screen. This is the district level. This particular district operates only one pre-K through 8 school, and they assume responsibility for their high school age students. So in this district level view, you are seeing the high school students, even though those students are not attending school in the district. So those are outplaced, but the school district that they reside in is still financially responsible for them. So you'll see the high school level in this data. one of the places that I want to draw our attention to is grade 8 here. Shelley? Can you click? Yeah. So you'll notice that this data, we're going to go and we're going to look at the student or the school level in the next slide. I want you to take note of the number of students that are listed as 8th graders in this district view compared to the number of 8th graders listed in the next view. So we have 47. And then we go to the next slide. You'll notice that the 9th through 12th grade levels have disappeared because they're not educating those students in their school. They're outplacing them to other high schools. So those students have now gone. Their attending schools would be listing them as attending at whichever high school they're attending. You'll also notice that our 8th grade has decreased. We've gone from 47 to 46. This is one of those instances where that one student is likely attending school outside of the district. So they may be in a regional program. They may be privately placed with a fiscal responsibility of the school district. They may be in a regional program, special purpose private. Wherever they are, they're not attending school in this district. The district still assumes responsibility, but they are not actually attending school there. Chronic absenteeism is based on so we're kind of shifting now. Chronic absenteeism is the other report in the ESSA dashboard that is based on student enrollments as of the accountability date. Chronic absenteeism is defined as the percent of students enrolled in a school for at least 10 days, with 10% or more of those days being absences. This includes unexcused or excused absences. So if you take a student's entire enrollment of 10 days or more, if 10% of that enrollment time frame were absences, those students are chronically absent. We collect this data for all students at any point in this school year. So if you have a student who's enrolled in October, for example, that student would not show on the ESSA dashboard. This is only for those students who are enrolled on that accountability date. So we collect for the entire school year enrollment or attendance data for all of the students who ever pass through the doors of your schools, but what's being reported here is only those students who are enrolled on that day. So we'll get into that in the next slide, I think. This is an example of how the data may differ from where it was reported in daily attendance certification to where it was reported on the data warehouse and how it's reported then in the ESSA dashboard. So I'm going to draw your attention to that big red blob right there. The daily attendance certification provides school administrative units with a percentage of the student body who is chronically absent. This data can be broken down in multiple different ways when you're looking at the actual daily attendance certification report. So if you're reporting data, you have multiple different ways you can validate that data within NEO. So we provide that count on the summary details report. This is what this, or the certification report. This is what the superintendent is going to certify. So this number right here is what would be certified. That is going to directly translate to what is reported on the data warehouse, with a few exceptions of any students who are exempt from the collection. You'll notice that in the ESSA dashboard, it looks very different. That's because it is only those students who were enrolled in May on the accountability date. So the numbers are going to differ. It's really important in July that school administrative units make sure that their data for attendance are accurate so that when we pull that subset of students who were enrolled on the accountability date to report on this ESSA dashboard, that those are accurate counts. Okay, so this one's the big one that a lot of people have questions about, because it's not really a one-to-one with what is reported and what we then what is reported up to us, and then what is reported out on the ESSA dashboard, just due to the nature of that particular accountability date. So just be aware of that. You can pull, if you're doing the data analysis, you can pull your list of ESEA demographics, student enrollments, and then compare over to your attendance data, and you'll be able to get a count that's, for the most part, fairly accurate, or pretty close to what we're reporting out. I've done it with a couple districts, and I always kind of end up on the spot. So next slide, please. The other thing that you will notice in the ESSA dashboard is that we do have quite a bit of data suppression. So data suppression is designed to protect student privacy. When we publicly report data, we have to make sure that we are abiding by FERPA. And so in order to do that, we have a suppression policy. The suppression policy is designed to protect student identities. Now, we don't identify students directly, but one of the things that will happen is students' group size may impact or may influence the ability of the public, of schools, to be able to identify particular students if we don't suppress it for a certain size population. So in Maine, we suppress at the N size of 5. If any student group is 5 or less, we have to suppress that data. So that could be any number of reasons that data are suppressed, being that a student group is less than 5. We also have to then make sure, people are pretty good at math sometimes, basic math, if you can do a basic equation to find an N size of 5, we have to also suppress that data because we can't identify that student group. So that could be, we have boys and we have girls. If the total number of students is 9, we have 5 boys and we have 4 girls, we have to suppress both boys and girls because both of those are going to be under 5. Even if we had 6 and then we had 3, we would suppress both of those as well, because if we reported 6, 3 could be figured out rather quickly, and we would then be, we would have identified that N size of less than 5, and those 3 students may be identified. So suppression on our dashboard, we get a lot of questions about our high school graduation rates and why so much data have been suppressed. So graduation is kind of tricky because you could have a really high graduation rate and it's suppressed, or you could have a really low graduation rate and it's suppressed. If a student population is 100 students, so this is just an example of why we would suppress a high graduation rate. If the student population were 100 students and 2 did not graduate, then the rate would need to be suppressed because that student group could be identified. If we identify the total number of students as 100 and 98% of them graduated, we would know that 2% did not graduate. So we would be able to see that in this data. It is also true if student population were 100 and 4 students did graduate, we would have to suppress that because we would be able to identify those 4 students that graduated potentially using basic intuition. So this is one of those examples of how a high graduation rate or a low graduation rate would be suppressed. So suppression does not mean anything bad. It just is protecting student data to make sure that those student groups of less than 5 cannot be identified. Next slide. So this is for all student groups in all categories as well. It's not just your overall students. This also bleeds into these student groups, particularly that are listed to the left of this data set. So if any of those student groups are less than 5, we have to suppress it. In this particular instance, I would wonder, I don't know what the numbers are, obviously it's suppressed. So, and I didn't go and look at the data, so I don't know what the counts were here, but if a student population were 9, back to that example, and all of the students graduated, male and female data would have to be suppressed because that is less than 5. You're breaking it apart into less than 5. mean, you can deduct that all of them graduated, but so if one student didn't graduate from that 9% or that 9 group, male, and that person was a female and there were 5 females, we would suppress because we could identify that one student based on those counts. So all of the suppression would take place there if you could identify any small student group, less than 5. Those suppression policies also bleed into our other data dashboards. There was a question last week that I wanted to address in this webinar. We do have other data dashboards from the Maine Department of Education. They're available on our data warehouse. If you go to the Maine Department of Education website and go to data and funding, it's one of the options under there. It's data warehouse. And we have some visualizations. This is an example of it. That's our quick facts. This is just a quick glance, statewide data. There are a couple other dashboards that are available within that that have different data sets available. So if you are going through that data and you want a more up-to-date data set, you don't want to wait until next year to see the data that's available on the ESSA dashboard. We do have our enrollment data that's available from our October collection that you could use for similar purpose. Again, it's going to look a little bit different just because it's based on a different data set, but it will give you more recent data potentially. So you can find the data warehouse from our website. If you have any questions about any of those data warehouse reports, please feel free to reach out. The ESSA, the data visualizations that we've been developing include the enrollment data, graduation, multilingual learner, military affiliation, staff data, as well as school and SAU data, and graduation, if I didn't say that one either. So those are all, have all become visualizations that you can utilize, and they're based off the most recent collection. We do strive once a collection closes, so once that time frame of the report closes, we do strive to have these available within 60 days of the report closing. So we do try to keep it rather up to date. And if you have any questions about, actually we've updated since this, I did not catch my email address, medms.support@maine.gov. You can reach out to them. They should be able to answer any of your questions on the ESSA dashboard, on the data warehouse, any of those resources. So please feel free to reach out to them with any questions. I didn't see any questions in the chat, but I will give a little bit of time. I know we're kind of at time here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat and we can answer them.
It does say that the question and answer is not available for this event.
Is the chat available for you?
No, it is not, because I was going to put a question in the chat and I couldn't.
Oh, okay. What was your question? I don't know why it did that.
My question was back on the attendance data screen and it had the red box. And you said, when you're looking at this data right here, but I didn't know which of the 3 data sets on that screen because like we didn't see a cursor or anything like that. So when you said it would be this data set right here, I wasn't sure which of the 3 you meant.
So the red section there, that section was based on the report in NEO that you can find. So highlighted here in red, that section would be what you would see in, it's just a small section of what you would see in the daily attendance certification report. So superintendents, data specialists, anyone who's reporting this data up have an opportunity to see those counts before the data are certified. So if they look off, this would be where you would want to do some deep dive. This is password protected. It's This is only provided to anyone with SAU access. So this would have to be something that you would request access for from your superintendent. They would send that up to our MEDM support team, and then they would provide that information. They would provide access back to you if this was something that you needed access to. But this is live data, I guess, in a way. If you're looking at previous years, it is certified, it is done. If you're looking at current year 24-25, that would be live data that's being updated through your local student information system, then coming into Synergy, our state system, and then coming into NEO, where it's making these calculations for you. So then we use that data to report out on the data warehouse, which is up at the top here, where it says elementary and secondary. And then it's also used to develop that subset of students on the ESSA dashboard from that accountability date.
Thank you. Now I understand how those three connect. Thanks so much.
Okay, no problem. I see a question in the chat. Yes, Freddie, we can connect. Please feel free to send me an email. I would be happy to meet with you and do a conference with you about your questions. No problem. Any other questions before we sign off for the day? Don't see anyone jumping for that mute button. So I think we will close up for the day, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their Tuesday. I will have this recording available as soon as I can. I just need to get it over so it can be rendered to the website. It will be on the DOE data playlist on our Maine DOE YouTube channel. So give it a couple of days. By Thursday, I hope it will be up. Thanks, everybody.